Good afternoon. This is about Conquerors and Kings armies. This particular one's a Macedonian army, and we're going to see how they form up, how they fight, and some interesting battle tactics. This Macedonian army is the same one as listed in the free army book. It's got pike units, all units, well, most proper units are 3 bases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 actual pike units. There we go, 7 pike units. Also, it's got some skirmishers. 1, 2. Skirmishers are only 2 bases. They're smaller units. 3, 4, 5 foot skirmisher units. 2 mounted skirmish units. There we go. Cavalry's got 1 unit of companions. They're armoured and veteran class, and 1 unit of some other Greek cavalry. Oh, I forgot a pike unit there. There we go. Also, there's 2 units of auxiliaries. Hypaspists. There we go. And the last thing, 2 generals. Parmenion and Alexander. But they're just any 2 generals. Now, that's the Macedonian army. That's fairly typical in a number of figures. It's about 150 figures. You might get a few more if it's a poor quality, war bandy type rabble army. You might get a few less with lots of armoured troops. There's your army. Next we're going to deploy the army. Here we go. In Conquerors and Kings, the table is made up of little brick shapes or grids. They're any size you want, but these are quite nice. They're 10 inches across and 6 inches deep. Now, I'm going to put some pikes there. Each zone or each little grid area can hold 3 units. But pikes there, 2nd pike unit there, 3rd pike unit here. Now I'm going to bolster them up a bit and give 2 pike units, 2 pike units, 2 pike units again there. Now the extra pike unit I'm going to put in the left flank. There's the pikemen done. Cavalry, I'm going to keep them together so they can operate at the speed they need to move at. So over on the right hand side, I'm going to put a cavalry unit there. They're the ordinary Greek cavalry, along with the companions. There's no point putting fast moving troops with slow moving troops, it just compromises them. I'll also put in the skirmisher unit there. There we go. Skirmishers are only 2 bases. And there's another skirmish unit there. Now the rules dictate that in the centre of the table you must have at least 2 units in each of these zones. There must be 1 unit in each of those zones. By unit I mean proper units. The auxiliary is going to put them both here. Now skirmishers, you can put a free skirmish unit in each zone and it doesn't make the capacity overflow. So skirmisher unit, skirmisher unit. And skirmishers are generic. We don't really care if they're slingers, javelin men, bowmen, whatever. They're just generic skirmishers. I'll put another skirmish unit in here. And another skirmish unit on the flank here. There they go. Now you only get 2 generals. I'll put 1 there and 1 with the cavalry in the corner. Now, here's the army all laid out. A couple of considerations to bear in mind. If you put too much powerful stuff close together, you won't cover the frontage. That could be a problem. Conquerors and Kings, the victory criteria, not only the men you kill, but the zones you capture. If these pikemen set off and captured loads of zones, that's fantastic. But if they're too narrow, they're going to get outflanked by an opponent. Got to be aware of that. The other stating the obvious is that you can't win everywhere. If each of your zones beats each of the opponent's zones, your army must be so good that it's not a fair game. So, decide which zones you want to be aggressive with and which zones you're going to try and delay with. Here, I think that this is a powerful zone, so they might press forwards and the other zones hang back a little bit. If this zone can beat enough enemy zones, that'll make a big hole in their line. I've put the general, Alexander in this case, with the right hand with the cavalry. They're not a particularly powerful zone. There's only 2 fighting units and 2 skirmishers. But they do move 2 zones a turn, as opposed to foot only 1 zone per turn. So maybe they could weave around there and do some damage on a flank. Sometimes you want to move troops just to distract the enemy. These auxiliaries aren't particularly powerful, but I might start moving them this way and that way, just so an opponent worries about their flank. I don't think they should worry about their flanks. It's not a very powerful zone. This pike block is my most powerful piece. Now, as the game progresses, these are probably going to go forwards like that. And again, that might be the first couple of turns of the game, depending on what the opponent's doing, of course. But Conquerors and Kings rewards people who have a plan, not just who wait and think every turn, what can I do? These might work more in echelon, stay more like that. You don't want to leave the flank open, but you don't want to fully engaged with a less good zone. They might punch up like that. These could fall in behind to give rear support, then lets the enemy tour around here. Hence why I was thinking of moving them up and maybe across. Although they've lost contact with the main body, it might be enough to threaten an opponent and scare him to looking after his own flank. These pikes here once again might follow up slowly, like so. It does rather gamble that this zone does well, but there are 3 blocks of pike that should do quite well. Now the cavalry would probably work up across the table this way, so they might go, because don't forget to do 2 each turn, so destination might be up here somewhere. Of course, it depends on what the opponents are doing as well, because it's a 2-player game. Here we've got an invisible opponent, which is fantastic. The problem might be if they do too well, they might end up a little bit cut off, so be aware of that. This rough scenery on this flank, where my hand is now, the Macedonian left flank, it might delay any close order troops coming through it. If close order troops move through scenery and there's no opposition, they can move much more easily. But any little bit of opposition makes a huge difference. You have to roll dice to try and move through it, which will really slow them down. Cavalry are a nightmare in any terrain like that. There's no good to them at all. So there's a basic battle plan. But the key points are, you're going to win somewhere and lose somewhere else. Try and win quicker where you're going to win and lose more slowly where you think you might lose. Don't just stay stationary or you're giving it the initiative in a game. You've always got to be manoeuvring to keep them guessing what you're up to. So these pikemen here might actually move up at some point. If there's a lot of opposition, they can fall back. They'll lose a few men by falling back, but you've not surrendered the initiative. So try and retain the initiative at all times. Even if it's just a bit of shuffling around a bit, try and keep busy. There's no problem with having your flanks sometimes stationary, but try and keep troops support each other. It matters in the game. Of course, once again, this is all theoretical, but the overall principles are keep moving and taking the initiative. Give yourself a few strong places and try and get your foot together. Don't just let them go off in different parts of the table. And that's basically how you might use a Macedonian army.